As a firefighter, I'm trained to look for signs of danger. Smoke under a door, the crack of burning wood, that distinctive smell before a flashover. But nothing in my training prepared me for this. My wife's phone calls at odd hours, mysterious dinner meetings, hotel charges on our credit card, all the classic signs of an affair. I was ready to confront her that night at the upscale restaurant. Instead, I walked into something far more dangerous than infidelity. Now I'm watching her through the window of an FBI surveillance van, and I'm beginning to realize that uncovering her secrets might just get us both killed. I've been staring at this blank screen for hours, trying to find the right words to share my story. Maybe writing it down will help me make sense of how everything I believed about my life turned out to be a lie. I'm James Parker, 38, a firefighter in Phoenix, and until last month I thought I had it all figured out. If you're reading this on Reddit, learn from my mistakes. Sometimes the most obvious signs are the ones we choose to ignore. Sarah and I had been together for 12 years, married for 9. We met when she came to the fire station to organize a charity event, and it was love at first sight. She was this vibrant event planner who could light up any room, and I was the guy who couldn't believe his luck. We built a life together in our cozy house near Desert Botanical Garden, hosted legendary BBQs for our friends, and were trying for our first kid. The irony is, my job taught me to look for signs of danger, to trust my instincts. But when it came to my own home, I was blind. It started with small changes. Sarah joining a new gym, buying different clothes, staying late at client meetings. Normal stuff, right? Nothing to worry about. Except now, I realized those weren't just changes. They were warning signs I chose to ignore. It was during my 48-hour shift at the station when things started unraveling. We were having a quiet night, no major calls, just routine checks. That's when Mark, my captain, mentioned seeing Sarah at the new upscale restaurant downtown. "Didn't know you guys were celebrating something," he said casually. We weren't. According to Sarah, she was working late on a corporate event that night. When I tried to brush it off, Danny, our rookie, accidentally let slip that he'd seen her there too. But what caught my attention was his quick backtrack when he realized I didn't know about it. The way he suddenly became very interested in checking the equipment told me there was more to the story. I spent the rest of my shift pretending everything was fine, but inside, something had shifted. The thing about being a firefighter is that you develop a sixth sense for when something's not right. It's like the air gets thicker before a flashover, or how the smallest crack in a foundation can signal a building's about to collapse. That night at the station, surrounded by the familiar sounds of radio chatter and the distant wail of sirens, I felt that same heavy feeling in my gut. The signs had been there all along. The new password on her phone, the mysterious work events that never seemed to have any photos, the way she'd started doing her own laundry separately. I remember standing outside on our back patio just last week, grilling steaks for dinner like I always did on my days off. Sarah was inside, supposedly finalizing details for an upcoming corporate retreat. Through the kitchen window, I could see her laughing at something on her phone, that special kind of laugh she used to reserve for our private jokes. When I came in to ask what was so funny, she quickly switched to her email app, brushing it off as just a silly meme. But her smile had vanished too quickly, replaced by something I'd never seen before. Guilt, maybe? Or fear of being caught. After my shift ended, I couldn't get Danny's reaction out of my head. The kid was terrible at hiding things. Classic rookie move. Instead of heading home, I drove downtown to that restaurant, Bella Luna. It was one of those fancy new places where you need reservations weeks in advance. Definitely not Sarah's usual scene. She always said she preferred our backyard BBQs to fancy dining. The hostess recognized me immediately. Perks of being a firefighter in a tight-knit community. "Oh, Officer Parker, haven't seen you in here with your wife recently." Recently? I played it cool, asking when she'd last seen us together. Her face fell slightly, realizing her mistake. "Oh, I'm sorry, I just assumed. I've seen Mrs. Parker here several times this month, usually at the corner table by the window." My stomach churned. I thanked her and walked back to my truck, but didn't leave. Instead, I parked across the street, watching the restaurant's entrance. I felt ridiculous, like some character in a bad detective movie. But I had to know. The corner table she mentioned had a clear view of where I was parked, and I could see it was occupied by a couple engaged in what looked like an intimate conversation. I pulled out my phone and called Mike, a buddy from the police department. Hey, need a favor, no questions asked. Mike had helped us run fire investigation cases before, and I knew he had access to the city's traffic camera system. Can you check if a particular car has been in the downtown area regularly? I gave him Sarah's license plate number. While waiting for Mike's call back, I scrolled through our joint credit card statement, something I hadn't done in months because, well, I trusted my wife. Multiple charges from Bella Luna, always around 8 p.m. A new gym membership I didn't recognize. Charges from a boutique downtown that sold designer dresses, way different from Sarah's usual style. And then something that made my blood run cold. A hotel charge from last Tuesday, when she said she was at an overnight corporate retreat in Sedona. My phone buzzed. Mike. James, buddy. You sure you want to know this? His voice was heavy. Her car's been parking in that same spot 3 times a week for the past month. Always between 7:30 and 10 p.m. There's more. It's also been spotted entering the Grand Phoenix Hotel parking garage a few times. Want me to send you the footage? I sat in my truck outside the Grand Phoenix Hotel, Mike's words echoing in my head. The footage he'd sent showed Sarah's white Audi pulling into the hotel garage multiple times over the past month, always in the evening, always leaving a few hours later. Each timestamp matched perfectly with her late client meetings or corporate event planning sessions. The hotel was way above Sarah's event planning company's usual budget. They typically worked with mid-range venues, not 5-star hotels with rooftop pools and Michelin-starred restaurants. I knew because I'd helped her scout locations hundreds of times over the years. My phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. Working late again, honey. Don't wait up. There's leftover lasagna in the fridge. Love you. I checked the time, 7:15 p.m. Right on schedule, according to Mike's surveillance pattern. 10 minutes later, her Audi pulled into the hotel entrance. She stepped out, looking stunning in a red dress I'd never seen before. The valet took her car, and she walked into the lobby like she'd done it 100 times. Maybe she had. I waited 15 minutes, then walked in myself. The lobby bar had a clear view of the elevators. I ordered a beer and settled in, my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. At first, I felt like an idiot. What were the chances she'd come back down? She could have gone to any floor, could be in any of hundreds of rooms. But then I got lucky, or unlucky, depending on how you look at it. The elevator opened, and out walked Sarah, laughing, her hand on the arm of a man I recognized immediately. Robert Maxwell, CEO of one of her biggest corporate clients. I'd met him at our Christmas party last year, had shaken his hand while he complimented my grilling techniques. They didn't see me as they walked to the hotel's restaurant. Through the glass walls, I could see them being led to a corner table, clearly their usual spot, judging by how the maitre d' greeted them. Sarah reached across the table to touch Maxwell's hand, and he brought it to his lips. I must have made some kind of sound, because the bartender gave me a concerned look. You okay, sir? I nodded, threw some cash on the bar, and walked out. In my truck, I pulled out my phone and started recording. 20 minutes later, they emerged from the restaurant and headed back to the elevators. Together. The next hour was the longest of my life. I sat there, recording every time they appeared in the lobby, heading to the bar for after-dinner drinks, then back to the elevators. At 10:30, Sarah finally emerged alone, retrieved her car, and drove off. I followed her, but she didn't go home. Instead, she pulled into a 24-hour gym, the one from our credit card statement. Creating an alibi, I realized she'd come home in gym clothes, smelling of shower gel instead of his cologne. I followed Sarah to the gym, my mind racing. I sat in my truck, watching her walk in with her designer gym bag, looking like she didn't have a care in the world. That's when things got weird. Just as I was about to call it a night, another car pulled into the parking lot. A sleek black Mercedes I recognized. Robert Maxwell. Something didn't add up. Instead of heading into the gym, he made a call, then drove to the back of the building. My instincts told me this was more than just your typical affair. I moved carefully around the building's perimeter, thankful for all those stealth training exercises we did for search and rescue operations. Through the back door's window, I could see Sarah and Maxwell in what looked like a heated discussion with 2 other people I didn't recognize. They weren't working out. They were hunched over laptops and papers spread across a table in what appeared to be an empty office. Sarah looked nothing like the woman I'd seen at dinner. Her face was all business, and she was pointing at something on one of the screens. I pulled out my phone and started recording through the window. That's when I heard it, thanks to someone not closing the door properly. The merger has to happen next week, Sarah was saying. If we wait any longer, the SEC might catch wind of the insider trading. My jaw dropped. Maxwell's voice came next. Your husband doesn't suspect anything? James? Sarah laughed, but it wasn't her usual warm laugh. This was cold, calculated. He thinks I'm having an affair. It's the perfect cover. He's so focused on that. He hasn't noticed the unusual transfers from our joint account. I felt sick to my stomach. My wife wasn't just cheating on me. She was involved in some kind of corporate espionage or fraud scheme. And she was using our marriage as a smokescreen. But here's where everything changed. As I was backing away to call Mike, this was way beyond anything I could handle alone. I bumped into someone. I turned around to find Danny, our rookie firefighter, dressed in a suit instead of his usual uniform. Sorry, boss, he said, not looking sorry at all. But I can't let you make that call. He pulled out a badge, FBI. We've been watching this operation for months. Your wife isn't just helping them commit fraud. She's helping us bust the biggest insider trading ring in Arizona. I stood there, trying to process what I was hearing. Danny continued in a low voice. Sarah's been working undercover with us for the past 6 months. We couldn't tell you. It was too risky. Those hotel meetings? All monitored by our surveillance team. The late nights? She was helping us gather evidence. Through the window, I could see Sarah still in intense discussion, completely unaware of what was happening outside. My mind was spinning with questions. The romantic dinners I'd witnessed, the intimate moments at the restaurant. Were they all just an act? The operation is almost over, Danny explained. We're moving in next week when they try to close the deal. Sarah's done an amazing job getting us the evidence we need. She's been dying to tell you, but we couldn't risk Maxwell's people catching on. They've killed informants before. The last words hit me like a ton of bricks. My wife wasn't just undercover. She was in danger. And I'd spent the last few weeks thinking the worst of her, planning confrontations, even considering divorce. Danny led me to his FBI surveillance van parked around the corner. Inside, screens showed different angles of the gym's office where Sarah was still meeting with Maxwell and his crew. 2 other agents sat monitoring the feeds, taking notes. Your wife's a natural, one of them said, adjusting his headphones. Never seen someone take to undercover work so quickly. Danny handed me a coffee and explained everything. 6 months ago, Sarah's event planning company had been approached by Maxwell's firm for a series of corporate retreats. During the initial meetings, she'd overheard things that didn't add up. Instead of going to the police, she contacted the FBI directly. We almost turned her away, Danny admitted. But she was persistent, said she couldn't live with herself if she didn't help stop them. The romantic dinners you saw, we were recording everything. Those hotel meetings, that's where she was planting our surveillance equipment. On the screens, I watched as Sarah laughed at something Maxwell said. Her hand touched his arm, a gesture I'd seen her do countless times at home. It felt surreal knowing it was all an act. There's something else you need to know, Danny said, his expression growing serious. Maxwell's people made Sarah about an hour ago. One of their security guys recognized me from the station. They're playing it cool, but we intercepted some messages. They're planning to take her for a private conversation after this meeting. My heart stopped. Then get her out of there. We can't. Not without blowing months of work. If we move in now, Maxwell's partners will destroy the evidence. We need them to try to move against her. That's when we'll catch them in the act. I watched the screens, feeling helpless. Sarah was still smiling, still playing her part perfectly, even though she must know she'd been made. My brave, incredible wife. There is something you can do, Danny said slowly. We need a distraction. Something big enough to clear the building, but not so obvious that they'll suspect a setup. He paused. How do you feel about starting a small fire? I stared at him. You want me to set a fire? In my own jurisdiction? Not exactly. We want you to respond to one. He pointed to another agent who was already on the phone. In about 10 minutes, the gym's fire alarm is going to go off. Your station will get the call. We need you to make sure you're the first one through that door. For the first time that day, I smiled. Sarah wasn't the only one who could put on a show. While we waited, Danny showed me the evidence they'd gathered. Maxwell's organization had been stealing millions through insider trading, using Sarah's event planning business as a front for their meetings. They'd already killed 2 potential whistleblowers, making it look like accidents. Your wife saved lives, Danny said. Those transfers from your joint account? She was documenting their money laundering, helping us track the real victim's money. The radio crackled. Fire alarm at Elite Fitness. All units respond. Showtime. The fire truck sirens pierced the night as we pulled up to Elite Fitness. Through my headset, I could hear Danny coordinating with other FBI agents positioned around the building. The alarm was blaring, and people were streaming out of the main entrance, regular gym goers in workout clothes, looking annoyed at the interruption. No sign of Maxwell's group. Danny's voice crackled in my ear. They're still in the back office. I jumped out of the truck, barking orders to my team. This might be staged, but we still had protocols to follow. Johnson, take the east entrance. Peters, check the sprinkler system. Martinez, you're with me? Inside, the emergency lights cast everything in a red glow. We moved through the gym, checking each room systematically. I could feel the weight of my turnout gear, the familiar pressure of the oxygen tank on my back. This time, though, I wasn't looking for flames. Movement in the target room, Danny reported. They're packing up. Maxwell's got his hand on Sarah's arm. My heart jumped, but I kept my pace steady. We had to time this perfectly. Fire department, I shouted, approaching the back office. Everyone needs to evacuate immediately. Through the door's window, I saw Maxwell's head snap up. Sarah was standing near him, his hand still gripping her arm. 2 other men were hastily shoving papers into briefcases. I pushed through the door, Martinez right behind me. Sir, ma'am, you need to leave now. We have reports of smoke in the building. We're just getting our things, Maxwell said smoothly, but I could see the tension in his jaw. He hadn't let go of Sarah. Now, sir, I insisted, stepping closer. Safety protocols. That's when everything went sideways. One of Maxwell's men must have recognized me, despite the firefighter gear. Boss, that's her husband. Maxwell's grip on Sarah tightened. His other hand moved toward his jacket, and I saw the telltale bulge of a concealed weapon. What happened next was pure chaos. Sarah, my brilliant, quick-thinking wife, suddenly went limp in Maxwell's grip, forcing him to either let her fall or lose access to his gun. He chose to let her fall. I lunged forward as Danny and his team burst in through the back door, weapons drawn. FBI, everybody down. Martinez and I grabbed Sarah, pulling her behind us as the room erupted in shouts and gunfire. Maxwell's men had apparently decided to go down fighting. Get her out of here, Danny yelled, trading shots with one of Maxwell's guards. I didn't need to be told twice. I scooped Sarah up, whether she needed it or not, and ran. Behind us, the sound of gunfire mixed with the still blaring fire alarm. The sprinkler system kicked in, adding to the confusion. The safe house was a small ranch-style home in Scottsdale, nothing fancy. Sarah sat across from me at the kitchen table while FBI agents moved around us, setting up surveillance equipment and coordinating with teams in the field. She had a cut on her forehead from when she dropped to the floor, and her designer dress was ruined. But she was alive. I wanted to tell you so many times, she said, wrapping her hands around a cup of coffee. Every time you looked at me with suspicion, every time I saw the hurt in your eyes, it was killing me. Why didn't you? I asked. The anger I'd felt earlier had faded, replaced by a mixture of pride and concern. Because I know you, she smiled weakly. You would have insisted on protecting me. Would have done something heroic and stupid. I couldn't risk it. These people, they're dangerous, James. They killed Marcus Reynolds by tampering with his car's brakes. Made it look like an accident. Danny walked in, his suit now wrinkled and stained with water from the sprinklers. Good news and bad news, he announced. We got Maxwell and most of his crew, but 2 of his men slipped out during the chaos. And they took something with them, a laptop with encrypted files. Sarah's face fell. The evidence. Not all of it, Danny assured her. The records you copied last week are safe. But the laptop has names. People involved in the scheme who we haven't identified yet. I watched my wife's expression change. I knew that look. You kept a backup somewhere, didn't you? She met my eyes. Remember that USB necklace you gave me for Christmas? The one I never take off. A small smile played at her lips. I haven't just been wearing it for sentimental reasons. Danny stared at her. You copied the files? Without authorization? I copied everything, Sarah said. Every time they let me near a computer. The necklace has a built-in USB drive. I figured if something went wrong. That's my girl. I couldn't help grinning. 6 months of thinking she was having an affair. And here she was, playing secret agent right under everyone's nose. An agent burst into the room. Sir, we got movement. 2 SUVs just pulled up to the Parker residence. My heart stopped. Sarah grabbed my arm. The photos, she whispered. All our family albums, the backup drives with our wedding video. They're looking for the files, Danny said grimly. They must have figured out you made copies. I stood up. That's my home they're breaking into. You can't go back there, Danny protested. It's too dangerous. We'll send a team. Those men killed people by making it look like accidents. I cut him off. I'm a firefighter. If there's going to be an accident at my house tonight, I should be there to respond to it. Officially, Sarah stood up too. He's right, and I'm going with him. Absolutely not, Danny and I said simultaneously. She pulled the USB necklace off and held it up. You need someone who knows exactly what's on these files, what they might be looking for. Besides, she smiled that smile I'd fallen in love with years ago. I think it's time we showed them what happens when you mess with a firefighter and his event planner wife. Our house looked different in the glow of emergency lights. 2 fire trucks were parked outside, my crew responding to reports of smoke coming from the building. The SUVs Danny's team had spotted were gone, but we knew they'd be back. Remember the plan, Danny said through our earpieces. Let them think they're dealing with a routine fire call. Agent Parker, he still couldn't help smiling at Sarah's temporary FBI status. You know what to look for. Agent Rodriguez will be your shadow. Sarah squeezed my hand before following the female agent around the back. They were dressed as fire inspectors, clipboards and all. Meanwhile, I led my crew through the front door, playing the part of incident commander. The inside of our home had been torn apart. Drawers emptied, furniture overturned. They'd been thorough but quick. Neighbors would have noticed anything longer than a 15-minute search. In the living room, our wedding photo lay shattered on the floor. Chief, Martinez called from the study. Signs of attempted arson. They poured accelerant, but something must have spooked them before they could light it. I clicked my radio. Copy that. Rodriguez, check the electrical panel. Standard protocol. It was our code. Sarah needed to check the hidden safe behind the breaker box. Panel clear, came Sarah's voice moments later. Another code. The safe hadn't been found. We moved room by room, documenting the damage while actually searching for any bugs or surveillance equipment Maxwell's men might have planted. The FBI had learned they liked to monitor their targets before striking. Then we heard it, the creak of the attic door. A sound so faint that only someone who lived here would notice it. Movement upstairs, I radioed quietly. Northwest corner. Hold position, Danny ordered. Backups. A crash from above cut him off, followed by Sarah's scream. Without thinking, I bounded up the stairs, taking them 3 at a time. Rodriguez was unconscious at the top of the steps. Sarah was backing away from a man in black tactical gear, another approaching her from behind. Found the little spy, the first man growled. Now, where's the drive? Sarah's eyes met mine over their shoulders. 8 years of marriage meant we could read each other's thoughts. As the men turned to face me, she dropped and rolled, just like I'd taught her during those playful self-defense lessons she'd insisted on last month. I charged forward, tackling the nearest attacker. Behind me, I heard the distinctive sound of a taser. Sarah had grabbed Rodriguez's weapon. 1 down. The man I'd tackled was bigger, stronger. We crashed into the wall, pictures raining down around us. He got in 2 solid hits before my training kicked in. Fire Academy taught us how to handle ourselves in tight spaces, how to use an opponent's weight against them. James! Sarah's warning came just as the second man started to stir. But then the cavalry arrived. Danny and his team swarmed up the stairs, weapons drawn. FBI! Don't move. It was over in seconds. As they cuffed the intruders, Sarah ran to me. Her face was scratched, her inspector's uniform torn, but her eyes were blazing with adrenaline and determination. Did they find it? Danny asked. Sarah shook her head. They didn't even know what they were really looking for. She reached in her boot and pulled out a small plastic bag. Inside was a broken piece of her USB necklace. The real drive is still safe. This was just a dummy, in case they came after me at the gym. The FBI's Phoenix field office was buzzing with activity even at midnight. Sarah sat beside me in the conference room, her hand in mine as we watched the interrogation feeds. Maxwell's men weren't talking, but they didn't need to. The USB drive Sarah had hidden told us everything. It was never about insider trading, Danny explained, spreading photos across the table. That was just the surface. Maxwell's company was a front for something much bigger. Sarah nodded. I started suspecting when I saw the guest list for their corporate retreats. CEOs and executives, yes, but also judges, politicians, even a few foreign diplomats. The photos showed familiar faces in compromising positions. Maxwell had been running a sophisticated blackmail operation, using the retreats as opportunities to gather dirt on powerful people. The insider trading was just a way to launder the payoff money. Each event I planned was recorded, Sarah continued. Hidden cameras, microphones, all disguised as high-end security systems that I recommended as their trusted event planner. They never suspected I was documenting their own surveillance setup. An agent burst into the room. We found something in the decrypted files. Mrs. Parker, you need to see this. On the screen appeared a familiar face. My captain, Chief Anderson. Photos showed him meeting with Maxwell, accepting envelopes, looking nervous. They were using the fire department, I realized. That's how they stage their accidents. The chief would assign specific crews, control the investigations. Sarah squeezed my hand. That's why I couldn't tell you. When I discovered the chief was involved, I knew the department wasn't safe. They could have used you to get to me. Danny pulled up more files. Maxwell was planning something big. A coordinated series of accidents across 3 states. Thousands of pages of dirt on key officials who could have investigated. If Mrs. Parker hadn't copied these files, how many? I asked. How many people were they planning to kill? 27 targets, Sarah whispered. All scheduled for next month, including us. They had our house on the list after they figured out I was gathering evidence. The door opened again. This time it was the FBI special agent in charge. We've got SWAT teams moving on 15 locations right now. Maxwell's entire network is about to come down. As if on cue, alarms started blaring throughout the building. Multiple screens lit up with security alerts. They're here. Danny jumped up. Maxwell's backup team. They're hitting the field office. Sarah was already moving. The evidence is being uploaded to the Department of Justice as we speak, the SAC assured her. But they don't know that. Through the windows, we could see tactical teams taking positions outside. The power cut out, emergency lights casting everything in a red glow. Just like at the gym, Mr. and Mrs. Parker, the SAC said calmly. How would you like to help us set one more trap? The FBI field office had become a war zone. Sarah and I were in the evidence vault with Danny and 2 other agents, listening to gunfire echo through the building. Maxwell's team was pushing hard, desperate to destroy the evidence before it could be used. Upload at 89%, an agent reported, watching the progress bar crawl across the screen. 3 minutes until completion. Sarah was checking the security feeds. 2 teams, heavily armed. They're using the same formation they use for their accidents. Chief Anderson is with them. I watched my former boss coordinate the attack. All those years of respect, gone in an instant. Let me talk to him. Absolutely not. Danny started, but Sarah cut him off. They don't know we made copies. Anderson thinks if they destroy the evidence here, they're safe. She looked at me. You're still his trusted firefighter. The plan came together quickly. I stepped out into the hallway, hands raised. Chief, don't shoot. Anderson's voice came back, strained. Parker? What are you doing here? Looking for my wife. The FBI arrested her, but the evidence is fake. She was playing both sides. Chief, she has the real files at home. A pause in the gunfire. I could almost see him thinking it through. Our house, Chief. The safe behind the electrical panel. Everything Maxwell needs is there. Footsteps approached. Anderson appeared, tactical gear over his fire department uniform. You're sure? Check your phone. I sent you a photo 10 minutes ago. He did, seeing the picture Sarah had staged, her opening our safe, files visible inside. The timestamp was current. Stand down, he barked to his team. Parker's got our solution. Maxwell, the files aren't here. The shooting stopped. Through my earpiece, I heard, upload complete. What happened next was chaos in slow motion. Maxwell himself stormed in, shoving Anderson aside. But when he saw me, he hesitated. That split second was all we needed. FBI teams emerged from hidden positions. Sarah appeared with Danny. The completed upload confirmed on her phone. Anderson's team, realizing they'd been tricked, started surrendering. "It's over, Chief," I said quietly. "Do the right thing." For a moment, I thought he'd fight. Instead, he removed his tactical vest. "I never wanted anyone to die. They promised it would just be insurance fraud." Maxwell lunged for a drop gun, but Sarah was faster. All those self-defense classes, all her preparation, she dropped him with one perfect strike. My event planner wife, taking down a criminal mastermind. Weeks later, we stood in front of our rebuilt house. The FBI had insisted on upgrading our security. A thank you for helping break the biggest corruption case in Arizona history. "Think we can go back to normals?" I asked, watching the sunset from our porch. Sarah leaned against me, her FBI commendation letter still unopened in her hand. "Normal's overrated. Besides," she smiled, "I hear the FBI is looking for consultants with event planning experience." "No more undercover work," I insisted. "Promise. From now on, the only secrets I'll keep are your birthday presents." We watched the sun disappear behind the mountains, together in our truth at last. Sometimes I realized a broken trust can be rebuilt stronger than ever, if you're willing to fight for it.